All right, now comes the fun part, putting everything back together. We got everything back from the machine shop. All our new parts are here. In this video, we're just gonna tackle that bottom end, get it all back together. Now, in our last video, we did end up taking that block out from underneath. Block was sent to the machine shop. All they did was ran it through the parts washer. They didn't do anything else. So we are gonna hone it ourselves. This can be done in vehicle, so you don't have to remove the block. Now, I do almost recommend removing the block because you can still get it from underneath. It's nice and light, and that allows us to get our rear main seal replaced. But if you are not doing that, that's okay. We can still hone out that cylinder or all the cylinders, get in the new pistons and bearings and all that. So let's get started. So what we want to get ourselves is a really nice clean work surface. Clean off your bench, get a table like this. We just want to make sure that it's super clean. I'm going to pull off our flywheel so we can get that rear main seal on. If this doesn't apply to you, you can fast forward. Now there are 6 bolts, 12 millimeter. All right, we'll put this bottom one in. And then we'll just have one up here for safety. There we go. We want it to pop off this dowel. So as I suck this in, because right now it's just kind of bowed out from the bottom. So I'll suck the bottom in and the top should pop a little. There we go. Just like that. I'll get that top off, bottom off. Okay, now this should just slide off. This whole thing. There we go. Nice and easy. We'll just pull that off. Perfect. Now we have our main flywheel bolts. Those are a 12-point 14 millimeter socket. All right, now I'm gonna hold the crankshaft while I pull this last one off. Now these are Loctited, so we'll make sure to put Loctite back on, and that also means having an impact will be a lot easier pulling them off. Okay, let's give it a tap. There we go. And we'll set our crankshaft aside. We can pull off our rear main. No big deal. And really do not drop this. We don't want to bend our tone ring here or damage anything. So we'll just be very careful. Set it down somewhere in a safe spot. For honing the block, some of the things you'll need, of course, is the hone, a drill to run it, a lubricant like a cutting oil. You can use motor oil 10W30, you can use transmission fluid. A lot of that is personal opinion. Now, if you go with a cutting oil designed for this specifically, then you don't have to worry. I'm just using some ATF. We want to coat the cylinder walls. Just get a little coat on there. Now you can do this dry as well. You can dry hone. One thing you have to be worried about is heat. You don't want this to heat up too much. There we go. Now there are other YouTube videos that explain how to do this honing. I recommend watching a few of them. Get yourself good and comfortable with the concept before trying it, especially if this is your first time. And wipe my hands off. Now if you are taking your block to the machine shop, you can have them hone it out. They can do that there as well. But if you're doing this inside your vehicle, we can hone it right in the vehicle. We want to take our hone. These are spring loaded. Push the spring all the way down. So you put this on speed number 1. Now as this turns, we want to push down and up, down and up. We don't want to go slowly down or slowly up, but in a nice rapid, almost like you're doing CPR. All right, that's it. Let me get my flashlight and we'll peek inside. Actually turned out really nice. We're gonna wipe it, reapply, and do that again. I'll show you when it's all done. Let me see if that'll show up in the camera. All right, hopefully you can see that crosshatch pattern. That's cylinder number 1. All the cylinders should have it. Now cylinder number 4 was the worst. You can see how there's little grooves there. The honing got some, but there's still some there. And that's just real world results. Cylinder number 1, 2, and 3 actually look really good. Cylinder number 4 has a little bit of scoring. Will we like that scoring to be gone? Absolutely, but that's okay. This engine is still better off after this rebuild than it was before. So don't be disheartened if one of your cylinders or maybe 2 of your cylinders still has a little bit of scoring on the cylinder walls. This block is still usable. So the next thing we have to prep is our pistons. Let's grab those, bring them to the bench. So the pistons are gonna be a little bit of a challenge. I didn't realize that the wrist pin is pressed in. So here's a new piston, here's a wrist pin. Now it goes in here, really nice, tight fit, perfect, but it's pressed into the connecting rod. I don't know if you can see on the back. So it slides freely left and right, but you can't push these out because it's pressed in right here. So that's our challenge. They do make a special tool, of course, but I do not have one. I got one coming in case we need it. But looking at the tool, I think we can make our own. Set this stuff aside. So I went to the hardware store. We got 3/8 all thread, just 1 foot length. We got a nut with a washer attached to it so the nut spins freely on the washer. I don't think that's as important. I mostly just like that fat head. So if you get just a stationary one with a little flared head on it, I think that'll work just fine. Then got a couple of free nuts, got a couple of really thick washers, and that's a 3/8 hole. And then this was in their little specialty bin, so the little drawers that have a whole bunch of different specialty stuff. So I brought a wrist pin with me to the hardware store, and this fits perfectly right inside. And then on the piston, it goes perfectly around here. This is our little receiver end. So how it works is I have it just like this, 3 nuts, and I'm gonna weld these together to make it one solid nut, one really big nut, so it can grab maximum threads. But right now they're just loose in there just to show you. So that goes on, then a washer, then this catch receiver, then it goes through like this. And then on this end will just be 2 nuts, maybe 3, and they'll be locked in place. So how you lock a nut, put it on here, and you put the other one on like that, and then you tighten them towards each other. So one's counterclockwise, one's clockwise, and you tighten them towards each other, and that locks them in place. So that'll be on this end. So as this side is tightening up, it'll pull on this and then suck it through. So that's the theory behind it. We'll see if we can make it work. So first thing I'm gonna do is get these welded together. All right, I do not profess to be a good welder. I don't think it has to be good. I think it just has to work. Okay, so I want it flat, lined up perfectly with each other. So what I'm gonna do is tack it all the way around on each of these flat edges and then re-grind it down so I can get a deep socket over it and move every nut at the same time as if it's just one solid nut. Caught my little paper towel on fire. That's funny. All right, there it is. Not the worst, not the best. But let's clean it up, get our edges back. So I got a rough grind just knocking off some of that stuff. I need to fine tune it. I just need to get this 14 mil deep socket to go all the way down. All right, sweet. So that's it. Now, let's try it out. Okay, we want this fat washer to go all the way down, and this to go on, and for it to go through. And we're gonna lubricate right here. Okay, now on this end, we just want standalone nuts. All right, I'm leaving this long just in case I strip thread somewhere. I have another opportunity to try. All right, we're gonna lock these nuts together. All right, and then let's go ahead and put on a third one. Actually, let's unlock this. We're gonna lock these 2 up here, so I always have something to grab onto. There we go. Okay, so that is gonna be like that. Deep socket over here. So now we tighten it up. And hopefully, it'll start sucking in. We need to make sure our catch is lined up before getting it too tight. Let me get a longer ratchet. It's gonna take a lot of force to turn it. Should probably put this in a vise. That would be the best. I think it's coming. Yeah, it is coming. Whew, sure gets your biceps working, man. Probably could use my impact on this end now. I just didn't want to strip anything. There we go. Okay, so that's separated, pressed out, and then our wrist pin is right here, nice and captured. And I'm glad we're doing this because if you look, I don't know if the camera will pick it up very well, but nice blue, or not nice, but dark blue right here. Those are heat spots on the other side here. I know this engine has been run out of oil at least one time, so you can see where it's overheated a little. All right, now pressing in the new one. Let's do it. We want to make sure that everything is nice and clean. Got on a nice clean towel. We are going to lubricate inside here on both sides. It's a nice thin film. Doesn't have to be crazy, but we do want it lubricated. Same thing to in here. A little lubrication. Okay, and then on the outside of here, a little thin film of lubrication. Perfect. So the important steps. You have a little bump protrusion on this side and flat on this side. That protrusion faces towards the front of the vehicle. Then on here, you have a little dot. That stamped dot also faces the front of the vehicle. So we want to make sure that these line up front to front. Now on these particular pistons right here is also colored with a little marker that's the front. So from underneath, we know which way the front is. If you don't have a little marker, you can go ahead and just apply your own marker to the front. So that's the front. There we go. We're gonna start this in like that. Now it goes in really well into the piston. It's just the connecting rod that's pressed in. So we'll come in from this side like that. I might modify one of these washers. It'd be nice if this spanned over a little more. So let me just check real quick. Let me visualize and see if it's needed. So if I just cut this little washer right here, made it a flat edge, then it would come up against here and just make a nice thick contact surface. I think I like that. So let me go ahead, I'll modify this and then just show you what it looks like. All right, so that's what it looks like, just a little D, just cut off a little slice of it. So now it fits perfectly right like that. So you get a nice fat purchase. I like that. Okay, so now let's go back to how we were. We want this in like that. We got our protrusion facing that direction. And then we're gonna go in like this. Okay, perfect. Now we just want this all the way down. All right, now we will lock those. Okay, gonna lube up this side. It's gonna be a challenge at first, getting it all to line up. So far, this is going really smooth. A lot easier than pulling it off. Okay, so it's hitting the other side. I don't want to force it in. So I'm just gonna back it out a little, make sure that it's lined up with the other side. There we go. Okay, I think we can move forward. Okay, so the all thread is pushing my socket out. So for the others, I'm still gonna have to grind this and make it fit a little better. Still kind of a tight fit. All right, let's keep going. All right, it's bottomed out. Back this off. Nice. Unlock this. All right, that's it. Moves freely, can move back and forth. So perfect, I like it. So this homemade tool works. It costs a little less than $10 for all the parts. Of course, you do need a welder and a grinder. So if you don't have those tools or you just don't fill up to making your own stuff, I will post the link in the description for the special tool designed just for this. Now I've never used that special tool, so I can't vouch for the product itself, but I can vouch for this product. Worked out really well. All right, I'm gonna do that to all the rest of the pistons and then we'll set these aside and get working on the block. Time to put in our main bearings. If you did not pull out your block, then you just have to replace those bearings the way I showed you earlier. If you did pull out the block, this is how we're gonna do it. Now the bearings, there's a groove and 2 holes. That goes in the block side. The smooth side, that goes in our caps. Now I wanna show you something just to keep in mind. This is one of the old bearings. Let me get a connecting rod bearing. Hopefully you can see it, not quite sure. But right here, there's a little stamp. That makes this bearing protrude a little. Can you see that? Maybe right there, it's raised right here. That fits in a groove here on the connecting rod cap. So there's a groove right here and a protrusion on the connecting rod bearing. On your main bearing caps, you don't have a groove, and on this side, on the block, there's no groove. So your main bearing should not have any kind of stamp or protrusion. If yours do have that stamp, I'm not telling you to do this, I'm not making a recommendation, but you could, if you're just super good at it, you can grind that little bit of protrusion off, flush with the rest of your bearing. That tiny little bit's not gonna make a difference, especially on the outside of the bearing. Now, if it was on the inside of the bearing, I would definitely not recommend that, but outside of the bearing, just saying. All right, so we wanna wipe this out really good. Just get a rag, make sure there's no grit. Wipe it out, you can blow it out. Really doesn't matter, we just want it clean. And all you do, you just press in the bearing until it's flush on both ends. That's it. And as center as possible, it's as easy as that. There is no front and back, just pressing it in. All right, that's it. We can take a little bit of lubricant. I like using this assembly lube. It's ultra thick. We're just gonna coat each one of these with a little bit of lubricant. Stuff is crazy thick. I'm gonna wipe off our rear main seal groove, right like that. Okay. All right, before we put this in, we have our thrust washers to put in. They're just these little horseshoe U-shaped washers. You'll notice there's little channels right here in the center one where they go. Let me double check orientation. All right, so these oil grooves, there's 2 little channels in it. We want those facing out. Let me just put them in like that. It should stay in place. Whoop, try that again. All right, I'm gonna hold this in place. So we already cleaned off our crank really good. All the journals, anywhere where our bearing is gonna go, we got it super clean. Problem is this bearing just doesn't want to stay. So I'm gonna put the crankshaft on first and then see if I can just slip these under. There, that worked. Okay, so easy solution to a complex problem. Put the crankshaft in first, then slip in your thrust washers. Okay, now we have our main caps we can put on, torque down. Let me get those. So same thing with the caps. If you remember, they are numbered and it has like a little arrow shape looking. So number 1 is on the timing chain side, and number 5 is on the rear main seal side. So just the same thing. We will just put it in until they're right about flush with the top and as centered as possible. And we'll take a little lube. Now you can lube this side or the crankshaft side. Now no lube goes under the bearing. So the cap is dry underneath the bearing. The lube goes right here on the inside. Before putting it on, we'll just do that to all of them. So number 2 is next. Press it in, get it in the middle. Put a little lube on it first. This part of a rebuild is very relaxing. I like assembling engines. It's very methodical. Take your time, double check all your work. No rush. We can reuse our old bolts. Let me see if we need a little bit of oil on them first. It says apply a light coat of engine oil to the threads. So I'm just gonna wipe it off nice and clean. Throw a little bit of engine oil. Oop, that was a little squirt. I'm just gonna do that to all of them. I'll probably fast forward through this part and we'll get to the torquing. So we're gonna start by just snugging these down nice and even. All right, let's get to torquing. See what we got here. We're gonna start off with 16 foot-pounds starting in the center one. We just have to hold it, it'll be a little tricky. Okay, then we'll go over one towards the timing chain, and then back one, and then the 2 end caps. Now we're gonna wipe off the top of the bolts. We're gonna put a little mark on them. I'm gonna mark them straight ahead, just nice and straight. Now we're gonna turn these 90 degrees, so the marks will be facing in this direction when we're finished. We'll do the same pattern. All right, hold the block. Okay, there's one. Smidge more. 2. Just gonna have to really hold it. Okay. So far, so good. Last cap. All right, nice. Just double check. If anything needs to go just a little further, it's okay. We can do that anytime. We're looking good. So now we'll flip this back over, put our pistons in. We can rotate our crankshaft, make sure it's not binding at all. Nice. And then we'll just keep it sideways like this. Flip it over. Perfect. We'll do another cylinder wipe just to double check. We wiped and cleaned all that out after the honing anyway, but can't be too clean. So now, let me get my squirt. We're gonna wanna lubricate the cylinder walls before the pistons go in. Just gonna get a little of this. It's okay to have more than less. It'll just burn off once we start the engine. We'll wipe these tops off so we don't get any oil in our coolant ports. Now our pistons, even though these are fresh from the manufacturer, we want to blow them off, clean them off really good in case there's any type of machining flakes or anything left behind. So I'm going to do that to every single piston, then we'll put our rings on. I apologize for the hard cut in the video. When I was doing the editing, I didn't quite like how it turned out. So I'm going to refilm just this portion of it. This is a different block out of a different Prius, but still 04 to 09. The first thing I want to note are the pistons. When you're purchasing aftermarket pistons, just to be aware that you're getting your pistons for a 1NZ FXE. It's important that it has that X in there. The FXE shows that it is a hybrid engine. There may be some differences. Let me put this piston ring to piston ring. You'll notice the height is just a smidge different. There we go. And then as I turn it around right here, go piston ring to piston ring, okay? Maybe you can notice just that little difference. This is the new one. Now it is rated for 1NZ FXE, so it is rated for the hybrid engine, but this is aftermarket, so it does look a little different. I'm not sure what that difference does mechanically to the engine. So if you feel more comfortable with an exact match, then I would get your pistons from the dealer. Just get a whole set from the dealer if you're opting for new pistons. Otherwise, go ahead, clean up your old pistons the best you can. Get all that carbon off the best you can. And for this block, we're gonna install new rings on the old pistons. Let me show you what the rings look like. I recommend getting your rings from either the dealer or using Mall. I have a link in the description for all the parts used, but Mall is a really good, trusted brand. Now for our ring layout. We don't want the ends of our rings to stack up. We want to stagger that end. We have a little dimple that's towards the front of the engine. Then we have our valve recesses. We draw a line from our valve recess across, and then valve recess across, making that X. And then the dimples right here in the front. So this is our top #1 ring. Across from it is our #2 ring. And then this in the middle is our #3 oil ring. So that's the layout. For these engines, Toyota has decided to use a 2-piece oil ring. You may be familiar with a 3-piece oil ring. I'll show you a picture on the screen what that looks like. But this 2-piece is a little different. Let me pull it apart and you can see right inside. Hopefully you can see that. There's a little wire. It's a little spring wire, and then this is a standard ring. There might be different ways to do this, but the easiest way I know how is to separate our oil ring. So just take that little wire out from behind it, just like that, and then this ring left behind can be expanded. You can see right here, there's just another wire inside. Expand it out just a little. You don't need it too much bigger, just a little bigger. And then that can fit right over the top. Put it in our oil groove, and then we can close it back up. Nice and gentle, push on the sides, there. Okay, we're closed back up and we're in our groove. Now we'll take our second piece. Let's see, 1, 2, so it goes right here. I'm just gonna walk it on, just like that. And we're gonna put it in the groove as well, making sure that it goes over the top of that spring. Okay, just like that. There, perfect, that's it. Once we get all the rings on, I'll take a picture with my phone so you can get a better shot of how everything looks. Next is our second compression ring. Now on the ring, there should be stamped top. That's the top of the ring. So flipping it over, that would be wrong. Turning it over, it says top. We want that facing up. So this is our second compression ring. So we'll put it on our #2 here. Just gonna walk it on. Put it in our second groove. All right, perfect. And we can turn it if we need to. Like this didn't fall in place very well, so I'm just gonna turn it. There we go. And then my oil ring got changed, no big deal, turn that. Okay, now last is our top. That should be the same thing. It should be stamped top for the facing up orientation. And we'll put this on our #1 mark. And that's it. So the rings are in as easy as that. Just look around, make sure everything is seated properly. All right, next we'll put it in our block. For that, I'll refer to the other video. Now we're gonna coat. Let's get our skirt, and then inside the grooves. I'm just dabbing so I don't wipe and reposition our rings. Perfect, now we'll just give it one more look. Ring #1, okay, ring #2, got moved. Okay, #2, 1. Oil ring. All right, nice. Now we'll get our compression tool. We'll slip that over, hold it with one hand, and tighten it with the other. Give it as tight as it can go. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna aim the piston forward. So our dot is facing in the forward direction. Just gonna hold it. I'm just gonna tap on the top to get this nice and level. Perfect. I'm gonna see if it can go any tighter. Don't think so. Okay. We just wanna take the butt of our hammer and tap it in. Perfect. Now, if it doesn't go in that smooth and it feels like it's binding up or holding up on something, it could be that the piston rings didn't get squished or compressed enough. So pop it back out, reuse the tool, recompress it. All right, that's it. I'll do the other two that's left. And just remember, we marked our connecting rods, so we want them to go back in the same order they came off. That is important. I'll do the rest off camera. All right, we are making good progress. We're gonna flip this over, put our connecting rod bearings on and our bearing caps. Push these pistons in just a little more. Now these bearing caps all look the same, so there's not a top or a bottom. But in our connecting rod, let's move this over. We'll bring that up a little. Just take a little bolt. There we go, and then we'll just bring the piston in. Perfect. There's a little protrusion on our bearing and a little notch on our connecting rod. We'll just line those up and press it in. And then just like our main bearings, you just want to get it flush as much as possible. We do not pre-lube our connecting rod. So the backside of the cap, or the backside of the bearing, I mean, does not get lubrication. It goes on dry. Just press it in. Easy peasy. Not much to it. Once the bearings are all in, we'll throw lube on it. Just using engine oil is good enough, or gear oil even, like a 75, 90, or I like this assembly lube, but just any kind of lubricant. All right, now we'll push this down and around and up. There we go. Remember, we numbered our caps. We want those to go right on the same connecting rod, and we'll throw bearings on that. And it's just the same. Goes on dry. There's a little keyed slot here, and then a protrusion on the bearing. I'm just lining it up. Okay, we'll lubricate the inside here. Running out of lube. And then this is keyed. There's a little dowel and hole, so it can only go on one way. And then we do want a little bit of oil on these threads. So just like the main bearing caps, a little bit of oil. 10 mil 12 point, we'll snug those up. All right, I'll go ahead and do that to all of them, and then we'll torque them down. So torque starts with 11 foot-pounds. Doesn't matter which one you do first. Each cap is individual, so we'll just start on one end, do the other. So 11 foot-pounds. And same thing as our main bearing caps, we're gonna wipe off the heads of the bolts. I'm gonna put our mark. Now we'll give it a 90-degree turn. All right, sweet. Now what I'm gonna do before sliding this back under is I'm gonna put our upper oil pan back on. That way we can get the rear main seal in and then put our flywheel back on, then we'll slide it under. If you're doing this underneath the vehicle and you have your connecting rod bearings back on, caps are on, everything is torqued to this point, the next step for you would be putting your upper oil pan on. You wouldn't have to worry about any of this over here, just if you pulled this out and you went as far as we did. Just getting all the lube off. Let me get the pan and some RTV. Typically, you want to use a plastic scraper to get off any of the old RTV. I am fresh out of plastic scraper, so I'm going to use a razor blade. I feel comfortable using the razor blade here because it's getting an RTV gasket. So if I accidentally gouge it, that RTV will fill in that gouge and we won't get a leak. Pop this out, just these little seals. And I'm just going to scrape off all the old stuff. We have a nice smooth surface. Perfect. We do not want to use the scraper where the rear main seal goes. We definitely don't want to gouge that. Okay, there's really not a lot of RTV left. So we're just getting a nice fresh surface. Okay, we'll get it out of these overflow channels too, just as much as possible so our new stuff has a place to overflow to. Okay, and then the front here where the timing cover goes, I want to scrape all that off too. It's just easier to get it now. Again, the timing cover gasket's just RTV, so not too worried about scratching it. We don't want to use any abrasive wheels or anything, like a wire wheel. It's a little too much. Not necessary. All right, we'll pop this little O-ring out too, here in the front. Now we're gonna take some brake clean on a rag and just wipe off our surface That'll get extra RTV off, and then any grease, we want to make sure it's oil free. And we'll get our timing cover too. Okay, if any RTV fell inside, we'll go ahead and wipe it off, get it out. Nice, this is prepped and ready to go. Clean off our table. All right, I'm just gonna look at this so I know what pattern to do. Looks like we apply the RTV to the pan, and then we'll flip the pan over onto the block. The MAL lower gasket conversion kit comes with RTV. It's nice that they include this. This is how we lay the bead. So this is the oil filter side over here. We want to go to the inside, 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 until right about here. Then we come to the outside, and then back to the inside, inside, and then we finish it off. And then over here, we start on the inside, 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 until about here. Then we go to the outside, 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 and then we finish it off. So let me show you what that looks like. The bolts that go to the inside of the pan, like these three here, go to the inside. Those beads are gonna be on the outside. These here go to the outside. The bolt is on the outside of the pan, so our silicone is gonna go to the inside. So here we go. So inside, 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 outside, inside, inside. And over here, all right, let me just double check. Probably use just a smidge more here. Doesn't need a lot because these are machined parts. It'll squish really well and fit nice and tight. Okay, that's it. We'll set this down real quick. Slide this over. Okay, so we want to do the same thing. Wipe this surface off really good, oil free. Now there are 2 O-rings here we want to replace. They didn't give us new ones, so I have a little assortment here. We'll see which ones fit. Hopefully we got a good size. Okay, those are too big. Those are a smidge too small. Let me try my other pack here. There we go, perfect. I'll put a link in the description for just a little assortment of O-rings. Okay, those are in, perfect. So now we got this. We'll tip over, just lay it down, find the dowel. Really long bolts go back here. And we're just gonna snug those down just to get a little bit of that RTV to squish out of the side. We only need to tighten just a couple. Okay, if it's squished out where our rear main seal goes, we just wanna wipe it. We don't want that to harden on us. So these are torqued to 18 foot-pounds. But I'm gonna start from the middle and work my way out. Okay, I'm just gonna double check my oil filter bolt. Perfect. Now I'll put this hex back in on the oil filter side. The oil filter stud with that Allen is 22 foot-pounds. And I am gonna spin on a filter. Lube it up a little. That way the inside of the engine is protected. Now it doesn't have to be crazy tight. This oil filter will only be on for 20 minutes. And then we're gonna change the oil again with a new filter. Okay, let's put our oil pan on. Then we'll seal this engine up completely. Then we'll slide it under the vehicle. So we want to scrape off any old RTV. Just looking for my blade. Where's my blade? All right, got it. So we're just scraping, probably scrape to the outside. We don't want to get any of this in as much as possible. We really could have scraped this before putting it on. Hindsight, I guess. All right, a little brake clean on a rag. Get this surface nice. Beautiful. All right, same thing with our bottom oil pan. We just got it cleaned off really good. Use some brake clean to get any oil residue off. We want to go to the inside of the bolts. Now it's up to you. You can go around the bolt. Sometimes I like doing that. But just remember, we need enough of this left to do the timing cover. And I think we will. We'll have plenty left. I'm just gonna go around each bolt hole. Just a little. But the inside is the most important. Do the inside of the bolt hole. Okay, double check everywhere, make sure there's enough. It's pretty uniform. Flip it over. Just line up the 2 front studs and set it straight down. Perfect. So everything I'm doing up here can all be accomplished under the vehicle. We're just doing it up here so it's completely sealed and we don't have to worry about dirt or grit while we're sliding it back under. Okay, so same thing, we want to snug it down until it starts to squish out, wait an hour, and then we'll torque it. All right, it's been a while, we haven't snugged down all the way, now let's torque them. 80 inch-pounds. You could do a crisscross pattern or start in the middle and work your way out. Either way is fine. Okay, I'm gonna go back around, just double check I got all of them. All right, that's it. Let's put our rear mainsail on and then our flywheel. So our rear mainsail, we're gonna lubricate right here, just a little. Okay, and then we're gonna lubricate around here on the outside. But right where the seams are, where the two halves come together, we're gonna leave a good space where it's not lubricated right there. We're gonna do the same up here, just a little bit of lube, but leave some space where the two halves come together. Now where the two halves are together, we're gonna wipe that clean. Wipe it clean, nice. We're gonna take a little bit of our RTV. We're gonna dab right on that seam and on the other side. Just a little, not a lot. And we also want to add a little bit of oil to the inside of our rear main lip here. Put a little on my fingers. We're going to go to the inside of the seal. It's going to be a tight fit, getting it over our crankshaft. So you just want to kind of work it. I'm just going to go around until it grabs. Just keep holding it. Keep going around. Okay, keep going around until it's flush. Perfect. Rear main is in. Now we can put on our flywheel. Now putting on our flywheel, it's not keyed in any way, so it doesn't really matter. We'll just put it on, line up our bolt holes. I'm just gonna put 2 in so it doesn't fall on us. There we go. Now we want Loctite or a type of thread locker. So we're using red thread locker. Hopefully this is still good. Doesn't look open yet. Nice, still liquidy. Okay, so we just want to apply some thread locker. Pop these back out. And we'll snug these down. So to torque these down, we have to hold the crank from moving. On the other end, our crankshaft has a little, let me turn the light on, has a little notch here and one on the other side for an open end wrench. So we can put an open end right here and that'll hold it. This is 1 1/8. It's a little big. I think a 1 inch would actually be a better fit, but it's enough to grab it and we'll get that initial torque, 36 foot-pounds on that end. So we'll start there, then we'll do plus 90 degrees. All right, let's make this work. Nice, there's one. I'll go straight across. Gotta kind of lean on the engine so it doesn't lift up on me. Perfect. I'll go 1 over. Okay, straight across. Okay, and then 1 over. Nice, and then straight across. Perfect. So let me just double check all of them. All right, perfect. Okay, now we need our 90s. We're gonna get them the same way we have been, just with our marks here. All right, now I am gonna cheat a little and use an impact. So I don't think I can hold this and get another 90. It was hard enough just to get the 36. So actually, let me put another mark on the outside of the bolt so I can see it when the socket's on. All right, go straight across. All right, torqued. Now let's get our damper on. So this needs to be lined up perfectly with this hole, kind of like lining up a clutch. And there's a special service tool. Of course there is. Do we have one? No, we don't. But I found that a 15mm deep socket is the perfect hole and it's the perfect size for our splines as well. So that is our alignment tool. So there we go. We're lined up. And we'll take this, match up the dowels. Perfect. Alignment tool. Of course, I left my bolts on the other side of the room. Don't move. Let me get just a couple of these started. Let me see if these need any Loctite. Okay, so these do not need any Loctite, just a torque. Okay, centering up our thing the best that we can. Just eyeball it about right there. We're gonna snug it. Okay, that's it. And then our service tool can fit in and out. Easy peasy. All right, now these are just torqued. There's no additional angles or anything. These are 15 foot-pounds. Straight across. All right, then I'll just double check them all one more time. Okay, we are ready to put this thing in the vehicle. So let me figure out the logistics of doing that, and we'll be right back. So the plan is simple. I have an old piece of plywood that we've laid on the ground. That way it's not sliding across concrete. We have to tilt the engine sideways because now it's too tall to fit underneath the vehicle since we have that oil pan on. So sideways, we'll slide it under, then we'll flip it up. We'll put the jack right under here, and then that ratcheting strap on the front. And just like how we lowered it, we'll raise it. Raise the back, raise the front, raise the back and get it up, and then we'll slide it in. And hopefully it won't give us too much trouble. So simple concept, we'll see how hard it is to execute. Just a little at a time, pivot it underneath. All right, I'm totally in your way. Let me move you. So we're under here sideways. Now we just need to tip it up right ways. Let's see how we can do that. You know, I probably could have just slid it right in here. I bet that's wide enough. Oh well, next Prius will do that. There we go. Okay, so now I just need it to slide back a little more. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like that for now. I'm gonna get this around the front very carefully. Now I'm gonna come in the back, lift it up, scoot it over a little. Perfect. Now I'm gonna get the jack back underneath the back side. I'm gonna lower the front a little. Not sure how much you can see. I'm gonna lift up the back of the engine and with my leg, slide in the jack. Okay, almost. There we go. Okay, so I think that's kind of the best I can do in this situation. So now I'm just gonna move all the wiring out of the way and start coming up. I wish I could put you in a really good spot. Well, let me put you down here for now. I think this is an okay spot, and then you can see the jack go up. From up above, I'm just holding the engine just to keep it balanced this way, front and back. And so I'll be going up with the jack plus up with this, and it'll kind of back, front, all the way up. That's the plan. Okay, come back some. I'm gonna tighten up the front. Need to pull the jack back. Okay, nice. Just watching our wiring and stuff. I'm gonna cinch up on the front. Yeah, it's working. Let me show you what we're doing up top. So up top, we just have to make sure that we can get all our stuff lined up. There are a couple dowels that need to fit in their spot. And in the front, we're just holding it with this. And then as this comes up, I'm just tightening this. So kind of like a security thing, I'm not really lifting from this. Most of the lifting is coming from the jack. So it's more just security, but it's looking good. So maybe what I'll do is just reset you up so you get a top view. Okay, the jack needs to go back more. Just make sure all this is free. I'm gonna slide it back. Let me get underneath and keep coming up with it. Okay, that might be it. Might be all I can do. Make sure all our electrical's out of the way. So the whole thing needs to rotate quite a bit towards the back. It's tilted forward a little too much. So maybe I can do that from underneath. If I can get a bolt through, that would be the best ever. So I have to go back underneath and see how I can angle stuff. Trying to negotiate these holes, just trying to line it all up. Oh man, I've been struggling with this for a little while. It's just hard to get that right angle twisted in there. So I have a couple of Phillips screwdrivers. We're just gonna use the shank to line up the two top bolt holes. We're gonna go in this direction, just so they sit in, and then hopefully we can manipulate the jack and get these dowels to fit in. So that is the plan. All right, let me show you what I got down below. So I was able to get our long bolts through down on these two bottom ones. That's perfect. So that means that we're lined up in this direction. Now we just have to wiggle in this direction. So left to right. So front to back, we're good. It's left to right. And our splines in the transmission have to line up as well. So we might have to turn that crank left to right just a little. So making progress, but it sure came out a lot easier than it's going in. Oh, nice. That was a good sound. Let's see if I can get one of these top bolts in. Okay, got that one in. Nice. So let me see about turning that crank pulley. Okay, turned it a little. Okay, it's sliding in. Got that one to cinch down a little further with my finger. We are so close. I just don't want to suck it up too much and force anything. Just gonna tighten this one up a little and see what happens. Turn the crank, make sure that it still spins freely. Okay, I think it does. I think we can just tighten these up. All right, got it in. I'm gonna finger thread all the other transmission bolts, and I'll give you a torque for those. So our block to transmission bolts are 24 foot-pounds. We have 6 of those. Once that is done, I feel safe just pulling this off, getting this out of our way. So now we can put our flywheel plate on. You can either get to it from up here or underneath. Either way, I think I'm gonna go underneath real quick. I can get this top bolt easier up here. All right, I think that concludes our bottom end. Great work. All right, feels good getting that engine back in. That was quite the struggle getting it lined up. You have the dowels that have to line up. You have the splines that have to line up into that flywheel, damper plate, flex plate. So a lot of things that need to line up. You got tilts and twists and all that, but once you get it, it kind of just boop, pops right in. So it feels good. All this can be done in vehicle. So I took it out just because we had the opportunity to, but you don't have to. Everything we did on the table can be done underneath. So that concludes this video. In our next video, we're gonna be putting the head back on, the head and some of the peripherals around it. So, see you there.